Hello everyone, and welcome to the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad and the Chicago and Northwestern Railway in Wyoming. Today is November 3rd, 2022. This is Layout Update number 36. I'm Mark Pruitt, Burlington Casper Division Chief Dispatcher. I've got a couple of things I want to talk about today, so this intro is going to be just a little longer than usual. Please bear with me. From now on during these intro segments, you'll see a scroll bar running across the bottom of the screen listing the people who signed up to be patrons of the channel and thanking them for their efforts. There needs to be a little bit of clarification here, I think. There's been some interesting reactions over the last month. So I'm going to read a little bit of this just to make sure that I get everything out there that I want to say. The first point, any funds I receive will be used first to enhance the production quality of the channel. That means better recording equipment and accessories. I've invested nearly $400 in equipment to improve the channel, the Osmo Pocket gimbal stabilized camera, and a wireless lavalier microphone, this thing, to improve audio quality when recording these intro segments. Additional equipment to improve cab ride video segments and a tabletop tripod are on the list to purchase as finances permit. The second point, and this is important, unlike a lot of other channels, I'm not going to reserve anything I produce just for those who decide to help support the channel. All my content will always be free to everyone. Those who choose to support the channel will have my very sincere thanks, but there will never be any pay-to-play around here. The third point, early in January each year, I'll post on the Patreon page a breakdown of donations I've received and what it's earmarked for. The fourth and final point, I'm not going to talk about the Patreon page every month. I'm certainly not going to start asking for donations at every turn. It honestly kind of annoys me to listen to that kind of stuff myself, so I'm not about to do it to you. And that's way too much of my face in this month's video. So let's switch gears and go look at the layout. We left off at the end of last month with a bit of scenery work in Powder River and the completion of tracks through downtown Worland. The first days of October saw me building the benchwork and sub-road bed for Holly Sugar at the east end of Worland. That was finished by the 6th of the month. At this point, I was working towards being ready for an operating session I scheduled for the 25th of October, the first full-up operating session for the layout. Prior sessions were limited to just a few folks for testing things out. I wanted the Holly Sugar Complex trackage to be fully functional, so I concentrated my efforts there for several days. I built 5 new turnouts and began laying the track work on the 14th. After several days' work, the Holly Sugar tracks were complete, wired into the power bus, and fully tested. Here I am checking the reach for uncoupling cars on the Sugar loading track. For the upcoming ops session, I wanted to add a few amenities and labels to the layout. First, I designed and printed town and major feature labels to attach to the layout, so folks who were unfamiliar with it would know where they were. These were glued to 40 thou styrene sheet using Super 77 adhesive spray, then trimmed and the edges painted with a black paint pen. I attached the labels to the fascia or benchwork using number 4 brass wood screws. I also finally bought some throttle pockets and attached them around the layout. The final touch was mounting folding cup holders near most of the throttle pockets. Here's how I mounted things where I don't have fascia yet, and here's the area west of Casper. Obviously, I still had to clean up the layout at this point. Other than testing the new track work at Worland, I haven't run a train since the last op session on June 25th. The track where I was working on scenery from Casper to the south end of Wind River Canyon had been taped over for months. I removed the tape and cleaned all the track on the layout. One of the last things to do before the session was to add fencing to all the track that hung out over the floor. Of particular concern was the turnback curve between the canyon and Thermopolis, and the new curve between Worland and what will someday be Grable. These fences are temporary. Someday in the far future, scenery will prevent the trains from falling to the floor. Finally, it was time to prepare switch lists and paperwork for the session using JMRI Operations Pro. The last step in preparing for the session was to build a few trains in Casper so they'd be ready to go. Additional trains would be built by the yardmaster during the session. At roughly 1 p.m. on the 25th of October, the layout came to life for its first full-up operating session. For this day, Phil, closest to the camera, took on the job of Casper yardmaster. Larry, right behind him, is running the Casper industry switch job. Meanwhile, Harry, in the far distance, has taken the C&NW local from Casper to Riverton and is completing switching chores there before heading on to Hudson. Also in attendance were Homer and Judy, and Frank, who's not pictured here. Homer enjoyed watching the chaos unfold from the stool he was perched on, and Judy and Frank, having never participated in any operating sessions before, elected to just observe for the day. Dave, my retired railroader friend from Basin, is out of sight behind the wall the whiteboard is hanging on, diligently working the new Holly Sugar Complex. Also attending and running trains was Kurt, though I didn't get him in a photo. I guess he learned to avoid me. Here's a video clip taken early in the session from near Casper. Dave, off camera, is getting clearance to depart Casper with a beat train bound for Holly Sugar, as Harry takes the C&NW local through Showbon on the way to Riverton.
I would like to depart if we could.
Going eastbound.
Westbound.
Westbound.
Okay, yeah. So we can depart, huh?
Yes, you're
All right.
Depart.
Hey, thank you.
The layout performed well, and everyone said they had a good time. Somehow, though, you never get as much done as you think you will. So a couple days after the session, I ran the remaining trains. We pick up the Worland local as it's heading through Tunnel 4 in the canyon. In this clip, the train is exiting the south portal of Black Tunnel at the south end of the canyon. These views will look a lot better when scenery is finished, won't they? We catch our train a final time as it passes Powder River siding on its way into Casper. On the 28th, I turned back to scenery work near Powder River. I'm not real happy with the almost billiard table flatness of the area on the layout, so I began adding some low hills at the backdrop. Here are the new hills after layers of hydrocal and tile grout have been added. On November 1st, I added the first layer of grass to part of the new hills. The changing elevation will certainly add realism to the area. Finally, for the month, I began laying out the position of Himes Curve, which will take the main line out of Grable and to the Franny/Oren interchange on the wall adjacent to the basement stairs. Himes Curve on the prototype is a 10-degree curve north of Grable. By comparison, the famous Horseshoe Curve in Pennsylvania is a 9-degree curve, about 65 feet larger in radius than Himes Curve. To get a sense of how the curve will fit in the area, I laid a section of 30-inch radius subroad bed in place. The actual curve will have a radius of 28 inches, the tightest on the main line. But this 30-inch one gives me a sense of how things will fit. I'm going to try to refine this early in November. And with that, we come to the end. I'm going to focus on Himes Curve early in November and spend some time on scenery over by Powder River. Pretty soon I'll need to build the stock pens for that siding. Dave, the retired BNSF engineer, has provided me with some very useful, and in some cases very surprising, insights into how the division operates. I was under the impression that all the local freights came out of Casper, but apparently most of them actually came out of Grable. That, and some other things I've learned, has got me looking at making some adjustments to the track plan. I expect to spend a significant amount of time on that this month. I'll report on it in more depth in future videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next month.